Spirit gave me that song shortly after I became your minister, and I was meditating one morning, and I was reading a book by Bud Morris, who was a member here, who passed on in my first year of ministry, but who had a huge impact on me. And this feeling of accepting that life of God, accepting that life of God. We know about it, we talk about it, but do we take it in? Do we accept that it is the truth for each of us? And in that moment I did, and in this moment I am, and in other moments I try to remember. And that's what it's all about. So this week, we are continuing our study of the 12 steps. Last week, we spent our time on step 1, which is to admit we are powerless over everything out there, which is really scary. And to also admit that when we try to control conditions, it makes our lives unmanageable. In other words, it makes us crazy when we try to control conditions. And step 1 would be absolutely intolerable to me because I have a little bit of control issues. Some of you might know something about that. Step 1 would be intolerable were there not a step 2. And step 2 in the 12 steps is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And as Jesus said, of myself I can do nothing, but the Father within does all things. The Father within does all things. He also said, the things that I do, you can do, and greater things than these can you do. Through the Father within, through the Mother within, through that divine, I hear a spark of divine, but we are not just a spark of the divine. We have all the fire of the divine burning within each one of us. We are not just a tiny spark. We are the fire of Spirit. So we're powerless of ourselves. So we surrender, but to what? To something greater. And so the first thing that has to happen when you surrender, when you get brave enough to actually admit, because really it's only the truth you're admitting. You're not letting go of control. You're just letting go of the illusion that you ever had control of things outside yourself. But then it's really important to go, what am I surrendering to? To whom? To what? What is this higher power? And guess what? You kind of can't be wrong. As long as it's not your little ego self. Years ago, my daughter was talking to me about a friend of hers that was having addiction issues. And she said, it's really not fair that there's not a 12-step program for people who don't believe in God. And I said, really? You don't have to believe in God. You just have to believe that you personally are not. Anything higher than that will work. So it's not me, it's not my human self, it's something higher, it's something more expansive, it's something beyond what I've been able to figure out. And believe me, folks, I like to figure things out. But there's something beyond that. My me, my I, me, mine, you know that part of you, that I, me, mine. When I can let go of that and know that I am actually a conduit for all to flow through. There's way more power than I, me, mine when I let go of I, me, mine. In the 12 steps, they call that self-will run riot. That our lives do not go well when we let our self, little s, small self-will run riot. When we're in the I, me, mine, we're the Veruca Salt of spirituality. From Willy Wonka, I want the world, I want the whole world. Yes. So it's vital in this moment when we are able to surrender to decide to what, to whom, to what will I surrender. And the who, the how, the what, we get to decide. We don't have to accept anyone else's idea of it, because guess what? You are an individuation of God, uniquely you, and you get to understand God the way that you understand God. And if you change your mind, awesome. You can't get it wrong. You can't get it wrong unless you're trying to limit God, put God in a little box. So, at the beginning of my journey of discovering who God was, because I had been told I had God in a box, and man, it was a tight box, and it was a heavy box. God is the one who knows every thought and is judging you for it at each moment. And if you happen to die while you're having one of those bad thoughts and you haven't asked for forgiveness yet, you're going to hell. Yeah, amen. And even if you die while you're having good thoughts, if you haven't been dunked, you're still going to hell. Sorry, y'all. Sorry, all you Catholics all these years that have been getting sprinkled. Wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. So I was ready to let go of that God. The lid on that box would not stay closed. The lid on that box would not stay closed. So at first, when I started adjusting my understanding of something higher than me, and really that was my first understanding of a real God, is the moment that I realized I could not have a God who was pettier than I am. And Mother's Day, it was when I was pregnant with my daughter. And I just went, okay, I don't know who you are, but I already love you more. There's no way, I know that there's no way I'm going to go, sorry, I've really loved you a lot, but that was your last chance, so burn for eternity. I knew that about myself. If I can be that big a person, why couldn't God be bigger than that? So at first it was just bigger than that. And the bigger than that was the bigger love than that. If I love my children this much, then I ought to be able to count on a love that is bigger than my love in this world. That was the beginning. And so I started to understand a God who was kinder, who was more loving, who wasn't so much about judgment. But at that point in my life, it was still a being. Father, Mother, God. It was still this parent outside myself that I counted on to love me. And guess what? That transformed my life. Just that much. It was here, yes, but it was also out there. And then as my consciousness evolved, I started to think of God more as the laws of the universe. It sort of gave way to this divine order. The law of attraction, the law of gravity, it works all the time. It works all the time. The law of God works all the time. The law of love works all the time. The law of giving and receiving works all the time. And I got to start practicing that to see, does it really? Does it really? What about this? And I got to know, not just know, but to know that the law of God, the law of love works all the time. And my consciousness expanded even more till I got to a place where God was transcendent from that even, not a being, but being itself. Not a transcendent God, but transcendence itself. When you get there, your mind can't hold it anymore, so you gotta only hold it in your heart. In 2002, I had a huge tragedy in my life. A beloved and very, very close friend who was 42 years old died in a small plane crash while he was on vacation in Hawaii, died with his 9-year-old daughter, his 7-year-old niece, and his cousin who was flying the plane. And this person was the kindest person I had ever met in my life. He was a rock for me. He was someone I leaned upon. And then just gone. And for 4 days, we didn't know where they were, and we were organizing search parties and paying for helicopters to look for them. I can't describe how painful it was. And I organized a prayer meeting for the whole church, because at this point, he was singing in my choir. So our minister was out of town. I organized a prayer meeting. 400 people showed up. We were going to pray them safe. And about little over half an hour before the prayer service started, I got the news that they had found the plane and they were all dead. To say I was angry would be really, really cutting it. I was angry, and yet, now I have to lead a prayer service for 400 people, so what do I pray now? Because I was praying for my will. Did you get that? I was praying for my will. And even though I didn't necessarily believe God as a being outside of myself, at that point I was like, okay, God, if you're really all powerful, you can fix this. You can fix it. All the time that the plane hadn't been found, I thought, even if they're dead, you can fix this. And you better fix it. I'm not here to tell you that I know why that happened. But I'm here to tell you that that was a huge transformation in my life, because for a year, I was mad. I mean, I knew the right words to say in the prayer service. I knew. And I hoped that I would believe them again someday. But at that moment, I didn't. And for a lot of the year, I'm just like, I'm working in a church. I'm singing about God every week. I am loving people every week and telling them that this is the answer for their lives, and I'm not sure I believe it. That was hard. And I was writing a letter to Jerry's parents and Emma's grandparents. Because what do you say to someone who's lost their child and their grandchild in one fell swoop? And so I remember writing that the one thing I knew, I didn't know anything that year, but the one thing I knew is that the love that Jerry was, the love that Emma was not gone. It was still mine. I could feel it. And I wanted his parents to know that it was still theirs and that they could feel it. And at that point, just my own hand writing that out went, so here's what I believe in. I believe in love. I believe in love. I'm not sure I believe in this God person, but I believe in love. And for a year, I functioned on believing in love. And guess what, y'all? Really, that was the seeds of the Church of One Love. Because that year, I gave up all the other stuff that I had read about God, all the classes, all the everything. And I went, if God is not love, then I don't want it. And if God is love, none of the rest matters very much. Yeah. Now my understanding of God is that it's just all of it. It's love in every single form. It is love formless. It is my beloved self, not my little s, mine self, but my beloved self, the awareness that I share with all. That is what I call God. And here's the deal. I don't mind using the word God anymore. For a while, I was a little against it. Now I'm back to, I know what that means to me. I love that word. But I also know that if you've had God in a box for a long time, especially if it was a box that someone else gave to you and told you didn't have any choice but to use that box, then that can be a problematic word. It can be a problematic concept. And the beauty of the 12 steps is that they tell you right up front that you get to turn your will and your lives over to the care of a God as you understand that God. You don't have to use anybody else's understanding. And so in my years in being heavily involved in the program, which is, I can't remember if it's 27 or 28, but it's a while. It's a while. I have seen people recover. I have seen people change their lives totally, become more loving, live a life of love, believe that love is theirs, and begin to be able to act accordingly, because that's what all the ills of the world are, is a lack of belief that love is the truth, or that love is available, or that love is there. And so I heard people use the traditional names of God, all different ones. Allah, God, Jesus the Christ. You can call God whatever, divine presence. There are some people who couldn't go that far, and so they decided to trust the group of people that they were recovering with. Guess what, y'all? That's God. The three gunas that I spoke about in there, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is the way shower, the Dharma is the way, and the Sangha is the community of people who are following the way. So there you go, there's God, the community of people who are following the way. I've seen them call God. I knew a woman who was Buddhist, and she said, I don't know if I can do this program because it's all about God. I said, no. You don't have to believe in a God. She said, well, I said, so what is it to you? What is the universe to you? She said, well, the way things are. And she worked a program with the way things are. It was beautiful to watch. Father, Mother, if that works, within, if that works, good orderly direction is something I've heard a lot about God, G-O-D, good orderly direction. Your higher self, the universe, nature, presence, the divine, good, Fred. I have a dear friend who's one of the most spiritual people I know, and she calls God George. Literally, she's like, okay, George, whew, we got some stuff to work on today. So I came to this place where there are two tests for me for is that God? Anything that I'm reading, anything that I hear, anything that I'm trying to get a grasp around in my mind that is about God, I substitute the word love. And if it doesn't work, if it's an oxymoron, for instance, God hates, well, love by definition doesn't hate, so that can't be a true statement. I don't care where it's written. That is a huge test. Anytime somebody tells you about God, substitute the word love. And if it works, awesome. It doesn't matter where they come from, what their religion is. If it works, yay. If it doesn't work, it ain't God. I'm here to tell you. And the other test is, could I come to this truth, if I had never been taught anything? If I was alone, if I was on a desert island with one other person my whole life, and I never read a book, and no one ever told me anything about God, could I come to the behavior that knowing that God is love brings me to? Could I come to a way of thinking without somebody telling me I had to? Without a moral code, could I just be moral? Would I not know within me what was helpful to do and what was not helpful? What paid good dividends and what did not? Then that's God, y'all. Then that's God. Those are my God tests. Use them. I invite you to. I invite you to. So the second half of that, believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I spent a lot of time on that power greater than ourselves because we got to know who ours is. You can borrow somebody else's for a while. I've seen that work too. Mary Mann Morrissey says a wonderful story about the fact that she was in a place where she could not believe, and a woman came in and said, I get it. How about I believe for you and you just borrow my belief? And she said, okay, and it changed her life. You can borrow God, but you can't live on a borrowed God forever. You got to figure out your own. And then restore to sanity. Restore to sanity? I've heard people say, wait a minute, I'm not insane. I've also heard people go, wait a minute, I don't think I ever was sane. How can you restore me to something I never was? And what I would say is restore me to innocence. Restore me to understanding that love is my purpose, love is who I am, and that if I surrender to love, I'm going to be okay. That is sanity, y'all. Insanity, as Einstein purportedly said, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the results to get different. And that is running around in the world of condition, trying to change things out there. The only way to change things out there is to change things in here, and then boop, like magic. Out there changes. So, restore us to sanity. Yeah. Before we make all these agreements or agree to all these agreements that other people have made, our family, our culture, our religion, our Madison Avenue selling us stuff. And then step 3 follows right on its heels. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. Ooh, I love that. So we would be idiots to decide to turn our will and our lives over to something that we had not determined was trustworthy. You get why you have to go through the process of understanding who God is to you before it would be possible or even wise to turn will and life over to. And when I say I turn my will, that means I give up me mine. I can want what I want. I can even say what I want. And yet, as Jesus so beautifully said, not my will, but thine. I mean, I know what little human Jesus wants. He doesn't want to be crucified. He doesn't want to be left in Gethsemane with people sleeping outside the gate instead of being their friends like they're supposed to be. But he understands there's something higher going on here, and he surrenders his will, and he surrenders his life to it. Now, most of us are not called upon to give up our lives, but we are called upon to give up the life we've been living that doesn't work, that doesn't serve ourselves or anyone else, that doesn't help humanity. We're called upon to give up that life. And the cool thing is, there's no way to give up that life without entering into a life of love and joy and peace and contentment. And yes, I lay down the peace sometimes because I want to make a drama. But I know where it is. And it's mine, and I can pick it up again. When I let go of I, me, mine, when I realize, oh, there I am, Veruca Saltz again. I let go of that. And then when I give up my will and my life, which is hard, but I love this phrase, over to the care of God. The word care in Webster means to make provision for. Over to the care of God, over to the provision of God, over to the idea that I will be provided for. I don't have to do this myself. As we understood him, nobody's going to make me. No one's going to make me understand God in any particular way. No one's going to make me give up my will in my life, but I can, of my own initiative, decide to do so. And the cool thing is, you can do it a little bit at a time. You can try a little test. That's what I had to do to get to the understanding of God I have today. And by the way, I expect to have a little different understanding tomorrow and next week and next year, because my God keeps growing. For a long time, I just kept making a bigger box. And finally, I got the message, oh, maybe there's not a box, which is scary if you're human, because we are in these little boxes. So, willing to try, and when we're willing to try, then we learn to trust, because the laws of the universe work. They do. The law of giving and receiving works. If you are truly giving love, not from your I, me, mine, about what you want back, but if you are truly freely given love, then I promise you, you are not living without love in your life. Can't happen. So what we want is higher. We turn our will. We want something higher. And our lives. So we do something higher. Right? To the care of God as we understood him. Yeah. And see what happens. And I want to close with this poem by Rumi. I just love this. Those who don't feel this love pulling them like a river, those who don't drink dawn like a cup of spring water or take in sunset like supper, those who don't want to change, let them sleep. This love is beyond the study of theology, that old trickery and hypocrisy. If you want to improve your mind that way, sleep on. I've given up on my brain. I've torn the cloth to shreds and thrown it away. If you're not completely naked, I said naked, that's very Texan of me. If you're not completely naked, wrap your beautiful robe of words around you and sleep. And yet, if you're willing to come naked to God, everything will change. Thank you. So we're just going to take that into a meditation. I'm going to ask you to just notice your breath. You don't have to take a deep breath. You don't have to do anything with your breath. Just notice it. Just notice that God is breathing you right now. That you are in the midst of the care and provision of that unknowable by the brain God. And so as we breathe this breath, we just accept it. We don't have to analyze it. We don't have to go, well, what is that God? How is that God breathing me? Accept it. Relax into it. In this moment, you are safe. And really, there's no other way to be, because there are infinite chances. There are infinite ways to understand God, and none of them is wrong unless we put a lid on the box. As long as we are open to a new and a new and a new and a new understanding, a new dawn to drink in, as Rumi says, then we can't get it wrong. And so we can decide, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try holding a little less tightly to what I want. I'm going to try to not hold on to what the things that I think that I need, that I have to keep. And trust that if I truly need them, they will come to me. What is mine cannot be taken away. And that anything that is taken is not mine, and it never was, and I don't need it to be okay. The one thing that can never be taken away is this love. If you can't believe it, I will believe it for you. I hold this love supreme. I know it is working within each of us right now. And if there's a place within your consciousness, within your body, within your mind at this moment that doesn't feel like love, what a glorious invitation. Give it love. You have an infinite supply because you are connected to all the love that is. And so you breathe in that love and then let it go. Don't hold on to it, because there's more love in the next moment. That's the law of giving and receiving, is I never have to build a storehouse for love. All I have to do is keep giving it out, and I guarantee that more will come in. But it only works when that love is without condition. As Shakespeare said, love is not love that alters when it alteration finds. Love is only love if it loves no matter what. And so we keep giving and we keep receiving. Just like the breath, if you'll put your attention back on that. Receiving, letting go. Breathing in, breathing out. Being loved, giving love. We are the place. Thank you for the harp music. We We are the place where love can always flow. And yes, we get tight and we forget. We get scared and we forget. And that's okay, because guess what? All we have to do is open back up again. Oh, yeah. And the breath can take us there. You can wake up one moment and realize, oop, I haven't even thought about breathing for the last hour and a half. It hasn't even occurred to me. And it happened anyway. And why did it happen? Because every time I exhale, I created a void which was immediately filled before it could even be called a void. And that's the way it works. Fullness into fullness, into fullness. Lack only exists when we try to take fullness and put it into a box. And so for at least this moment, we just float in a sea of fullness. No boxes needed. And from this place, it's easier to believe that something higher than our little I, me, mine is working through us, is trustworthy and reliable. And so we put it to the test. If we want to, that's okay. By using it in our lives. And that makes all the difference. As we breathe in together again, we just say, yes, thank you, thank you. Thank you for that breath given and received. Always moving. Never gone. Thus is the love of God. And so it is. Amen.